I just wanted to thank you both for coming together to talk about this. It's part of a series. What we're really thinking about as a company is, hey, there's this role, the SPC, and there are so many dimensions to that. And so Phil and his team are kind of coming together to think about, well, once you are an SPC, what comes next? And that's really the kind of impulse or background for this journey. So Phil is an SPCT. Phil Gardner has been with the company Applied Frameworks for, gosh, it's like over a year now, Phil. And Rochelle and Phil have known each other for way longer than that. They've worked together on a number of engagements. And so I just want to let everyone know that we're recording this. We will be taking questions throughout the webinar and also at the end. No question is a waste of time to pose to us, because we do answer all these questions. If we don't get to them during the webinar, we also answer them in the kind of summary. And when we send out the link, we include answers to additional questions that we didn't get to. So ask the questions, please. The best place to put them is in the Q&A button down at the bottom. Sometimes we miss them if you put them into chat. So if everyone can put them into Q&A, that makes my job just a little bit easier. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Phil and Rochelle, and I'll just be monitoring the questions.
Great. Thank you very much, Laura. So this is my second time presenting with Rochelle. Our last time was the 2020 SAFE Summit. And so it's exciting to be able to talk with her again. You know, this series that we're doing on the SPC Journey to really kind of understand some of the skills and attributes and different elements of being an SPC. You know, we kicked this off back in July with Harry Konerman from Scaled Agile with kind of I'm an SPC, now what series. So this is number 3 in our series. Next month, we're going to be doing I'm an SPC and I consult. But really, coaching is something that's a critical skill set. And there's people that are really not good at it, and there's people that are amazing at it, and all those in between. But first thing you have to understand is, what is coaching? And so we're gonna dig through this a little bit, and Rochelle and I will have a dialogue, open up for your questions. And with that said, Rochelle, do you want to take us into a little bit of our agenda? And
yeah, let's well, before we jump into the agenda, let's really quickly, there's a lot of things that people think of when they think of coaching. And so take a look at these and think for a second, what do you think coaching is? Actually going to,
which one's the coach, right?
Yeah, which one is the coach? So
I've actually
got a poll for us,
okay.
And I'm curious about what the folks out there think as well. So let me launch this poll really quickly, and let us know what do you think coaching is. So let's see what we've got.
I think we might have some coaches in the audience.
I think we might. I'm seeing these answers roll in, and got a couple more folks, and I'll close the I'll close the poll in just a second here. Yeah, I'll go ahead and close this, and so yes, sharing the results here. So yeah, so our choices were giving people advice, seeing that people would tell people what to do and they'll do it, and or telling the people how to do the things they need to do. Our favorite answer here, which is right on the money, is partnering with people and guiding them through change. And sometimes people think that coaching is all about making sure people do what they're supposed to do, or fixing organizations or people, but really it's that middle one. And so we're gonna dive into this today. So I'll stop those results. Let's jump through this. The poll went away, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So today what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about what coaching is, and specifically what defines coaching in an agile context? Because there's a big wide world of coaching out there, but then there's specific things that makes, that are different when you're working with agile and you're working as an SPC. And we're going to really dive into what, how can SPCs apply coaching skills? And then, how can actually taking a coach approach really positively impact your safe implementation? It makes a big difference. So, and then finally, we'll talk about, ways that you can develop your own coaching competency. If that's an area where you want to find, that appeals to you, and you find you have a strength in it, how you can strengthen that. So, and then we'll have a Q&A, and you can ask us anything about SPCs and coaching. So, I like to say that, honestly, change is hard. And any kind of change is hard. Even a change that you're looking forward to is hard. And that's why we have coaching. That's really where the strength of coaching comes in. And so let's get on the same page with a definition. So this is from the International Coach Federation, called ICF, and they've created a definition of coaching that I feel like it really resonates. It's partnering with clients in a thought-provoking, creative process that inspires them to maximize their personal and professional potential. The process of coaching often, and I see this, often unlocks previously untapped sources of imagination, productivity, and leadership. And I really love this definition. As those of you in the audience, take a look at this and just think about what pieces of this really stand out to you. What areas? And then Phil, what are your thoughts on this?
Yes, for me, Rochelle, my background, but when I was so worried about the title of coach. Right. When I left to be a consultant, I was like, no, I'm not a consultant. I'm a coach. And I didn't know what that meant really. But the market said that the person that helps an organization transform is a coach. So therefore that's my title. So therefore I am now a coach. And, I had a kind of the awakening there, which was, it's not all about you, Phil, and what you think. And wonderful individual, Damon Poole, mentored me in coaching and brought that out there. I do think that there's this, what is coaching, is a question that people are going to continually have to battle and struggle with, because I know some individuals and heard of individuals that are coaches, and for them, their job is to instill fear in you. They're the experts, you are not, and you're really lucky you called them, because you'd have zero chance of success without them there. And when you think about that, this definition, I love it. The question is that are people in a situation where they're willing to be able to bring in a coach as opposed to a consultant or someone who tells them what to do? And so it's an interesting something to unwrap, and that's what we'll do today. So.
Thanks. Yeah, I really see coaching as a partnership, and I have a similar experience as you. When I first learned about coaching, I was working for a consultancy, and they said, go be an agile coach. And I said, well, what's an agile coach? Oh, go tell them how to do things. And luckily, I found my way into some really great information about agile coaching. I read a book called Coaching Agile Teams by Lisa Atkins, which is probably one of the first really deep books on agile coaching specifically, and it changed things for me and made me really want to dive into, okay, what actually is this skill and what does it entail? So if I come at you one-sided and I tell you how to do something, you're like, sure, just do what I say, that works, right?
Sometimes.
And that does have some value. I don't want to discount that value, but often just telling somebody what to do, telling somebody what they need to do, it's not necessarily enough to affect change. If you've ever tried to do some kind of big change in your life, maybe you want to run a race or learn to do something new, you know that it's not as straightforward. Oh, just do this and I'll do it. Great, At the same time, if I come in and I go ahead and do something for you, well, that's great too. And that can be very helpful in the short chance, but what you're really doing is you're missing a chance to learn. So it fixes things quickly, but it doesn't necessarily empower you to take the reins on your own. And you're always dependent on me who does the thing for you. However, if I work with you, if I come in and I work with you and enroll you in the change, and we create answers together, and those actions, they're going to be a lot more sticky. It's going to be a lot more powerful. You're going to have a better chance at really having something that you can take away and be long lasting. So let's take a look at some skills. So it's like, okay, this is a very broad level, but what does coaching look like tactically? Well, here's a few items here. So you can see here we've got you may have heard some of these powerful questions, asking questions in a way that make people think about the answer in a little bit of a different way than they have before. Sometimes coaches look at things, help you look at things in different perspectives. Sometimes if you're struggling with like another person, well, what would it be like if you were in that person's shoes? Those types of perspectives can be really, really helpful. Just the idea of being curious and listening, those are such excellent coaching skills, and they're slightly different because listening is your active listening especially is taking the time to hear what people are saying, process what they're saying without interjecting your own thoughts. But being curious in the first place is really wanting to know what it is that the people need, and being really interested in their needs. And then finally, a couple of skills that are great is guiding people to take actual action, not just talking about something and churning on it, but actually figuring out actions that you can take together, and finding some sort of accountability. It can be as simple as okay, great, we came up with this action together. Are you how are you going to be accountable for it? So you just make sure you do it, and and how do you know you're going to be successful at it? Those types of things. So.
Great.
Yeah.
When you think about, I guess, one of the questions I have for you, Rochelle, these skills, is coaching something that you do across the board? Is it always, right? So I'm an SPC and I'm coaching. Does that mean I'm always having to be coaching? Does that mean that it's a skill that I pull out and use sometimes? Where are maybe help me understand a little bit your perspective on how and when to leverage coaching with SAFe. Is there is something you do at the beginning of an implementation? Is it something you do when you launch an Agile release train?
Yeah, there's a lot of questions in that, and so coaching is a skill that you need to learn to use at the right time, and it's a great place to be, but if you think about it, it's not always, sometimes people just want a straightforward answer. So if I'm like, oh, if somebody says, oh, hey, Rochelle, should I, do we have to have PI planning with every PI? Sure, we could explore that, and I could dive into it, and ask you questions about it and look at perspectives about it. But you're probably just looking for a very simple yes, you do. Now, at the same time, I would want to say, I would want to know, I would get that curiosity and say, why do you ask, and see what's behind that, so then that's where the coaching comes in. But you have, it's really, it's really important to understand where people are, what people are looking for and what people need in the moment.
Yeah, on that note, when we work together, my take on it is it's your outcome, not mine, right? Which I guess intrinsically is kind of a coaching mindset when it comes to helping a company or a government program transform. What we've talked about ICF and kind of this idea of professional coaching. Where does that meet Agile? Where does that meet SAFe?
That's a really, really good question. So there's a couple of answers to it. But first, when okay, if you're in that generic definition, if you're in that ICF definition, you know, you're holding your client's agenda, the coachee's agenda at all times. When you're agile coaching, there's that plus one. You have your client's agenda plus the individual agenda plus the organizational agenda of becoming agile. And there's a combination there. And it's a bit of a double-edged sword. So on one hand, you need to be really clear about, about that context and that you're headed towards business agility. Sometimes there's like a fair amount of resistance, and you can use coaching skills. You can use that curiosity, you can use patience, you can use empathy to really work through that. And sometimes coming from those stances are enough. But it's really important to make a distinction that, if you're 100% coaching from a third party's agenda, you need to disclose that and say, yes, we're coaching here. And the idea is that this organization is moving into safe and moving into agile and moving into business agility. On the flip side, if you're coaching, if you're agile coaching, it's really cool because you have this really great body of knowledge to draw from. You get to pull from the values of agile. You get to know the principles, all kinds of things. If somebody says, well, I'd like to, do XYZ, it's like, well, okay, how does that look through the perspective of individuals and actions over process, individuals and interactions over processes and tools? Or how does that look through the lens of taking an economic view? All of those kinds of things. So I'll often combine things. It's like, well, you might remember from the framework, your textbook answer is ABC. But then let's explore this and see where that gets you. Just the same way as, yes, the textbook answer is, yeah, we do PI planning every PI. Let's take a look at that.
It's interesting, that implies that you've got a lot of, being able to weave that. It's like you're combining your experience, right, to kind of to help people towards business agility with your professional coaching skills. But what if you're a new SPC? Specifically, you're a new SPC. And there's a lot in front of you. You don't have that deep experience yet. Is there something you can tell me about kind of the coaching skills that a new SPC may choose to develop? Is this something they want to develop early, or is this something that can wait until they're a Rochelle?
It's great to develop that coaching skill early, because like as you said, you're coming in, you don't have that vast amount of implementation experience. You haven't launched as XYZ agile release trains, and so you're going to have to use your curiosity, and actually you're going to get to use your curiosity. So it's really helpful for you. It's helpful for you as you in the implementation, helps you have a better implementation, but it also helps you grow your own skills overall with SAFe. So think about it. If you're a new SPC, you're learning as much as you are teaching or consulting or coaching. And, so if you actually go into that coaching stance and you're asking a lot of questions and exploring solutions, you can't help but learn, right? And also, asking those powerful questions and really, it's going to give you a lot more credibility than if you're just tossing out answers without context. So it's really great for a new SPC. Yeah, I highly recommend.
So speaking of new SPCs, right? They definitely, the coach when they think about SAFe and they think about the implementation roadmap. I think you had a slide on this, and when do you bring in, right? So looking at this, it's like, okay, I'm an SPC, and I'm hearing about these coaching skills. Maybe I've gone off and followed some of Rochelle's recommendations, and I'm digging into the coaching community out there and learning more about the skill of coaching. What are the opportunities here to leverage those coaching skills?
Well, looking at this implementation roadmap, you've got the opportunities right here.
Everywhere.
Basically, throughout the whole implementation roadmap, we're still screen sharing. There are opportunities to keep doing that. So to coach. so think about it. In the very beginning, you're working with leadership, and you need to really think about what leadership needs. But it really helps to connect leadership to what they want for their organization, what they want for their company, what they want for their business,
Oh,
what they
that's
want.
sorry, I interrupted you.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I was saying that it's funny, the tipping point here, right? It's tough, right? So if I'm a lone SPC trying to change, my medium-sized company here, or the business unit inside a larger one, I'm trying to work with. I'm used to working with. I was a Scrum coach, and I'm used to working with Agile teams and coaching Agile teams and helping them do great Scrum. And now all of a sudden, it's about convincing a group of senior executives to invest in pursuing business agility. It's a much different skill set, and when I think about my own experiences and mentoring others when it comes to preparing for supporting more senior executives in an organization, this whole idea of what drives them, what keeps them up at night, and using curiosity and things like that in that very beginning tipping point, it allows you to create a connection. That's one thing I've learned, and I'm by no means a master of coaching, but I bring that in sometimes. I don't consider myself to be a professional coach in any way, shape, or form. However, there is this kind of drawing others out and understanding their perspectives, understanding their desired outcomes. And I think those coaching skills definitely apply early on when you're trying to understand why somebody wants to implement SAFe, because it's the vehicle that gets you there. It's not the destination itself. So, definitely the leadership skill side of there. Is there thoughts you have on, toggling between the different, I mentioned, in our first webinar on this series, kind of coaching, mentoring, facilitating, training, leading. There's different skills you might need. Is coaching something that can be your default, or can it be something where you put that hat on every now and then? What are your thoughts on that,
Know your audience. To be honest, it really, if you've got an audience that, especially at the very beginning of that tipping point when you're talking to people, because they're not going to have gone through training, so there's probably going to be quite a bit of, okay, so this is how this works. This is the mechanics of the framework. These are the values of the framework, and then connecting that. So yeah, knowing your audience, and knowing, I guess, knowing also what their temperament is. Not everybody wants coaching, but when people do want coaching, it really opens things up for them. When you start saying, okay, at a leadership level, what do you deeply want for the people in your organization, and you connect it to that, and then they can say, okay, they might have something that has nothing to do with SAFe or Agile or anything. They might say, I want the people in my organization to be happier. I've had people say, I want the people in my organization to have joyful work, or I want the people in my organization to, not be working crazy overtime hours, or I just want more visibility into things.
It's funny that I've done a lot of executive workshops over the years, and those first three things you said, I want more engaged people, I want happier people, I want people to have joy. You'd be surprised that it's people, people at the, that are doing the work. They're not seeing that. They're not hearing that from their most senior executives. And it's really empowering to hear that. I can't think of an executive workshop where employee morale and employee engagement and just generally wanting people to love coming to work and doing stuff they love is not part of the conversation. And so it sounds like the coaching skills allow you to pull that out a little bit, which is what leaders want for their groups. What about the audience here? I know we've been, Rochelle and I have been chatting, and just side note here, she's one of my phone friends when it comes to coaching. So while I had the honor of mentoring her, through her first art launch, years ago, there were times when she's like, Phil, you want to have a conversation? And we would say, okay, put on your hat, put on your coaching hat, and we'd go find a place to sit and chat and talk about, she'd draw out, and that was tremendously powerful. And it's a technique that I still use. Somebody's not doing okay. Sometimes checking in with them and using some of those coaching skills really makes a difference. And I guess the question I have is, having heard what we're saying so far, if you want to put it in, if you have questions on this, and we're going to probably stop sharing here in a second and just open it up for Q&A. And then Rochelle, I'm thinking we can, kind of do some questions and then pull back to the continue your journey and kind of end with the guidance there. Just so we can maybe hear from the audience now, if that's okay.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm looking at the chat. Let me stop sharing for a moment here. We can pull up.
Yeah, there's some questions that are coming in on the Q&A. And so if you guys have that open, I can either read them out to you, or you want to just take a peek at the Q&A tab.
Okay, taking a peek here. As a new SPC trying to coach, I sometimes struggle with passive aggressive behavior from my coachees. Do you have any pointers on how to deal with passive aggression? Ooh, for me, I want to jump in here and say that, are you an internal SPC or are you an external SPC? Because the one thing I've learned along the way is that there are some nuances and some things around psychological safety and things like that may impact how you can approach a situation. Having said that, let's hear from Rochelle. She's our resident professional coach here.
Yeah, so there's two things I want to bring up. One is you want to get curious. You want to get curious. As you mentioned, psychological safety. What's happening for that person? What's happening in the larger organization? If anybody's acting any kind of way, they're doing it for a reason. It may just be, it may be organizational culture. It may be, reaction to change. As I mentioned, when people want to change, all kinds of funny behaviors start coming out. So, there's something like that. But I would, ask what's going on. Say, where are we with this? What's happening? What do you see? One of the important things with psychological safety is that when you're having a coaching conversation, it's really important that you bring in confidentiality and you say, when we're having this conversation between you and I actually take that with my coaching certification. That's part of my ethics and part of my certification. I say that is what I will bring. I won't go and say, well, Phil told me blah, 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 So that just right there can help build trust, but that's, I would find out what's going on with the trust situation in the organization, and I would find out what might be going on with that person personally. But I do want to bring out, when you talk about people being passive aggressive, so if you're a coach, you're a human too. So make sure you have that self-care, it's super important to be able to take care of yourself. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, I mean, you're saying it's okay is it okay to say, hey, this is not okay, right? Is it where you're the coach, so you have to take it? Or is that what you're saying is like, hey, I don't have to take this because I'm human too?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. Just because you are patient and you are curious and you have empathy doesn't mean, you have to take the hits.
So I have a question here related, just to kind of this thought here. Is there a difference between someone, you as a coach saying, having an agreement with somebody to get consent for you to coach them, and a situation where you're working inside an organization and they've hired you as an Agile coach and they say, go coach Laura. And so you show up and say, hey, Laura, I'm your coach. I'm here to coach you. And Laura's like, what? Right? I don't need a coach. How do you handle that situation?
That's a conversation. Sometimes, if they don't, you can't coach somebody without their permission. That's an ethical thing. And it's also not gonna work. Let's just put it out there, there's, it's probably more manipulation than it is coaching at that point. And the right thing to do is say, this person doesn't want to be coached, and let's find a different stance to work with them. I made a mistake, a few years ago now, where I was actually working with a team, and I didn't get permission to coach, and I was working with them on a retrospective, and I started really diving deep into some of the things that were going on, not realizing that there was somebody who was really sensitive to just the idea of even talking about feelings at all. How do you feel about that? Does this make you mad? Does it make you sad? Does it make you happy? This person, that just was not their cup of tea, and they ended up storming out on me. And that was a hard lesson for me to learn. I was like, oh boy. But that was at least partially on me. I should have asked, is it okay if I work with you like this? Is it okay if we talk about these types of things? Because if you get that permission ahead of time, you're gonna be so much better off. Yeah.
Well, that's powerful. Get permission, get consent. We've got another question here from Kevin Seibel. Great guy. I've often seen coaches hesitate in the moment due to fear, self-doubt, etc. I tried to help prepare coaches for the moments when coaching is necessary but unexpected. Any advice on how you've prepared yourself for those moments, like the ones where Phil grabs you and says, "Hey, I don't grab you, but hey, Rochelle, do you have a minute? Can we talk?" Right? I know that's happened a few times over the years.
Yeah, honestly, practice. When we're going to go to the end and we talk about some of the things, ways that you can grow your own coaching skills, practice is a great way to do it. And there's actually some spaces out there working with other coaches, and actually working with other coaches. They have coaching dojos, and you can actually get together and say, okay, let's practice coaching together, and and just, it's the more that you've used that skill, then the more that when Phil says, "Hey, Rochelle," I'd be like, oh, let me jump into that stance. So yes,
I remember one time though, when you're like, "I can't, Phil." And I just, it was interesting is that knowing Rochelle and how much she puts into professional coaching, and kind of that's part of who she is. You can't be angry with that. It's because it's a team sport, right? It's a partnering, and so just I want to just say that out there, that coaches are people too, and they may not be, they may have some stuff going on where they can't get into that moment. They can't put that hat on and give you honor the relationship as a coach. And so being able to say that. So I don't know if Kevin, I hope that answers your question. The fear, self-doubt, etc. I'll tell you that there's an awkwardness to it. Now, those of you that know me, transparency is the way to go. And so there'd be a, hey, I'm new to this. I've got my little deck of cards from Damon here that he used in his training and mentoring of me. And I'm gonna put that card down, and it gives me some cues on things I might ask you back. And it may be awkward, but I'm learning this, right? And I found that level of transparency really helps. Do you think that if somebody's newer to coaching, is that going to be detrimental to say, "Hey, I'm new to this," or is it something where, how my stance on humility, and I think yesterday I told you were an expert coach, and you pushed back on that. Not a master. I didn't say master. You're not the Yoda of coaching, but I respect you because you're better at it than I am. So what's some thoughts you might have around, to Heath's question about fear, self-doubt? You go out and you got to start somewhere. Just like an SPC launching their first art, you got to start somewhere.
Yeah. I've had that fear and that self-doubt, and it's and recognizing whether or not you're ready for it is probably pretty important, because you can hurt people's feelings, or or bring them into a place that they don't want to be. So again, it's asking and making sure you're ready, but sometimes finding the right moment and diving in so you can get that practice and learn more. Again, if you practice in a safe space, then it's going to be a lot easier to practice, to actually bring it out real and be like, okay, I've got a little bit of self-doubt here, But I remember, when I was practicing with this person over here in sort of it was real coaching, but it was a safe coaching where I had permission. Well, then I can ask, do I have permission to coach you a little bit on that and dive in? You'll get, that hesitation will lessen with time. It doesn't necessarily always go away, especially, when you're in an agile coaching spot where you do have to find where you have to juggle all of those different, abilities and different skills. So, yeah.
So thanks, Rochelle. Hopefully with some other additional questions. Let's see, tips on how you would coach a stakeholder who's an alpha male or alpha female and feels they know exactly what to do, the hippo behavior, right? We've all met those. I actually enjoy those challenges, but let's hear your answer first.
So that alpha male, alpha female, that might be their superpower. That might be, hey, so I see, I'm noticing that, and maybe, you do some coaching with them, around what they value and who they are. And once they start to know themselves, they're like, okay, I know that I'm really adept at ABC. Great. You are a take charge kind of person. What does doing this thing that you want to do, or, what does that look like from a take charge standpoint? On the flip side, sometimes it's fun to say, okay, I know you're a take charge kind of person. What if we looked at it from a different perspective? What if we said, okay, what if you looked at it from that other person's perspective? Let them get a little empathy and start, growing those skills for themselves.
And it's I found that for me personally, it's what's the outcome they're looking for, right? And when it comes to these individuals that are demanding, and I do a lot of work. I'd say probably more and more of my work is on the business side, or we're brought in and hey Phil, what are the outcomes we're looking for? Well, we want the business engaged. Okay, so I'd say that's probably, I can't think of an engagement that we've done in the last couple of years where that wasn't part of the outcomes they want me to help with, right? And a lot of times you get that kind of that standoffishness, that just do what I want you to do. And when you start peeling back from that, what you find is that there's a fear because there's no predictability, right? And this is the stuff that the amount of business execs that lose sleep over a lack of predictability, it's crazy. And so oftentimes they're in this state of fear. Think about it this way. When you're thinking about this hippo behavior, imagine if you've ever thought you're going to miss a flight. Right, you're on the way to the airport and you get your phone bleeps and it says your flight's been canceled. What happens to you physiologically, right? Well, mentally, your heart rate increases, right? Your cortisol is flowing. You're stressed, right? Is that the time when you want to have a heart to heart, or is it nothing changed? You are not willing to be open and non-demanding, because you're in this fight or flight mode until you're on that plane. That's what life is like for a lot of executives and leaders, both on the IT side, but even especially on the business side. And so until you can address that, and this is why I like the analogy of safe with agile release trains, is because it's like a subway. Hey, every 5 minutes it's running. Okay, we missed this first one. It happens. We're gonna get the next one. Unlike, hey, we're heading to the Safe Summit and our flight got canceled. We get a flight cancel notification at 4 a.m. for our 7 o'clock flight. Well, now what do we do, right? And so it's a whole different experience. We have another question. Oh, you have something to close
before we jump into that, I kind of want to add to that because even there, when you've got somebody, first off, if somebody's completely flooded with the cortisol and the adrenaline and all that fun stuff, that's not the right time to coach. That's have some space, respect that space. But if there's, you think about the things that keep leaders up at night, and we talked a little bit about, okay, what does a leader really want? And sometimes those things are, the soft skill kind of things, like the joy and they want the people to have a sustainable pace. But sometimes they're quantitative things. Is my business sustainable? you know, working with working with product people is, are we able to actually be profitable? Because that's something that's a real thing, a real fear that people have. And that's another thing that you can coach around. You don't have to just coach around warm fuzzy stuff. You can coach around quantifiable stuff. Okay, how do you know that this is this way? You've got the numbers right here. Well, let's look at how to make those numbers different. So
That's a great
yeah.
point. It's for me, sustainability gets me up in the morning, right? I want people to go to work and have joy, to love what they do and do what they love, right? And make the world a better place. However, that doesn't mean that I'm not helping companies become more profitable. Because the reality is, if you're not profitable, there is no company for you to make sustainable, right? And make people, but and the flip side though, if all you're focused on is profit and you ignore sustainability, then how long are you going to be profitable for? So there's this infinity loop between profitability and sustainability that absolutely has to find the balance, and coaching can help there. But we got one other question here. How do you differentiate between coaching and mentoring? And this is an interesting one, because as I learn more about coaching, I personally, Amber, realize I am not a natural coach. I insert my experiences, and that's how I relate to the world, is through my experiences. I share stories and anecdotes, and if somebody asks my advice, I typically will share a story to see what kind of what they bring from that, and then we kind of go from there. But let's get Rochelle's answer on this: coaching versus mentoring.
I'm really glad, Amber, that you asked that question, because because Phil is where my strength is coaching, his strength is mentoring, absolutely, all the way. If I am coaching, if I am strictly in the coaching stance, my past experience with this doesn't matter. It's your experience with this. It's your journey. It's your change that you're affecting. I'm alongside with you. If you ask me specifically what I've done in the past, great. But when I'm in coaching mode, it's really focused on the person that I'm coaching, or the group that I'm coaching.
And mentoring is really pairing, and I like to think why I love mentoring is because I want to save you from all the pain I've experienced in my life. And that drives me, right? I want to save everybody. And pure coaching doesn't necessarily allow you to save everybody, because, if they're not ready to go there, you don't have a situation where you nudge them that way. So maybe a bit more on mentoring versus coaching. So yeah. I will tell you, we're going to be doing a similar in this series that runs every month on, I think it's the third Thursday. Our next one's on the 20th. We're going to go through mentoring. We're going to go through consulting, facilitating, training, and take a deeper dive on each of these. Next, we're doing consulting. And my hope is to actually bring in, I'm starting to open this up to individuals beyond just applied frameworks. I've been talking with Scaled Agile and some other people in the community, and I want to bring some additional color. So, if you're interested, I'm thinking about you, Kevin, out there, from a standpoint of facilitating or training, getting some other people out there and just kind of having this dialogue-based chat about these skills, because ultimately, in the service of an enterprise or an agency pursuing greater business agility, you're going to have to use all 5 of the hats. And whether it's you personally, or you saying, hey, I can do a little bit of the coaching, but hey, this client or this customer or this implementation needs a lot of coaching. So let's see if we can get someone like Rochelle, because they're going to need that. Whereas over here, this company, they've got an investment firm that's breathing down their neck. They've got to show numbers immediately. They want consulting to really kind of drive that. Now, I'll tell you personally, because that whole sustainability and profitability thing, I believe that mentoring and coaching and those are needed, because we want to get that sustainability. And you can accelerate a journey by using mentoring. So think of mentoring as, let me, whether I show you this or we work together on this. An example might be, had a Canadian government agency that wanted to do participatory budgeting. And so they reached out to our awesome sales exec, who just happens to be on this video with us, and said, hey, we want you to come in and facilitate participatory budgeting for us. And our conversations basically resulted in no. I mean, it is because we could come in and we can do it for you, but then what? And instead it turned into us approaching it, where let's show you and flip over the rock on the preparation and be part of our group as we prepare for this, so that, you can watch us do it. We'll help facilitate the first one, but then the second one, we're there as a backstop. And what's beautiful about the mentoring side of things is that, they've got this, right? You become a phone a friend, and it's very gratifying to be able to hear where they've gone, a year from there. When I met Rochelle, we spent 3, 4, 5 months together launching this art. And then, she'd check in with me every few months and tell me all the good stuff that she was doing and how happy her government customer was and things like that. But we'll do another session on mentoring. And and I haven't really figured out who the right people are. Laura, just to let you know, I'm actually thinking about Luke, because Luke is somebody I consider to be a mentor. Luke's style and my style, tough love and not tough love, sometimes not tough love, are different. And I think that'd be an interesting piece there on really kind of different techniques. With that said, go ahead, Rochelle.
I was going to say, this, the note on mentoring and the note on the different stances. I think it might be time for another poll.
Okay.
Because we've got one here on what is your preferred SPC style. So, so I'm going to launch this poll, and I'm just curious for all the people out here, what's your go-to, what's your strongest skill? What's your go-to, style? Do you coach? Do you mentor? Do you train? Do you facilitate? Do you consult? Is it a mix of the above, or do you not know yet? And that's okay if you don't know yet too. So these are all great SPC areas. All right, we've got 11 of our 16% of 16 people. Okay, 12, a few more people to answer questions. $14. All right, I am gonna wrap this up in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, let's share these results. So it looks like the majority of the folks here are mixing it up, and that's awesome. We've got a few people that are really comfortable in the consulting realm, and then coaching, training, and it's okay not to know, because you're exploring this. This is good. So I'll stop sharing this. Let's take a look at this last part where we can figure out how do you continue your SPC journey. So let's see. All right, can you see that okay?
Not
All
yet.
right, there you go. Can you see this? Oh no, I didn't hit the share button. So
Now
how
I
about
can.
now?
Okay. So yeah, this is the rough draft of the SPC self-assessment. Those are some people helped with this first beta version, and I'm actually in the process right now of, I've met with Scaled Agile. We're doing a second version of it. It's going to be a little bit different, but essentially, as an SPC, the top left, you've got your skills, these 5 skills that you've got to, at least be aware of, right? And if you don't know, that's okay. But, the context you coach within, the industry you coach within, your personal preferences and styles, right? Like for me, I can coach, but it's work. Mentoring is not work for me. And so, find those strengths and those areas of opportunity. But there's also expertise versus experience, right? Your specialization. Is there a domain or a market you're an expert in? And then finally, some of these same skills, self-awareness, self-discipline, that kind of rides the line there with these leadership skills. You'll definitely tap into these in those 5 skills: coaching, mentoring, training, facilitation, and consulting. Your ability to have self-awareness and self-discipline and social awareness serves all of those skills. But so we're talking about coaching today. So what advice do you have or resources for an SPC wanting to grow and learn more about coaching?
Couple of things, first off, so really cool thing. The Agile Alliance has been doing a lot of work around coaching and Agile coaching ethics. Don't just hang up a shingle and say I'm an Agile coach. This is really great. I love this little graphic because it just is like, okay, I'm going to, I love the acting within my ability, so you go in and you learn more and then go out, navigate those conflicts of interest, managing differences in status and power, because coaching, if you don't have that permission, then it turns into manipulation.
I'm the SPC. I'm the SPC. You need to do what I tell you to do. I'm the expert. I'm the one with the certification, Rochelle. You need to, I know what
that's not
safe
coaching.
says. Oh,
that's not coaching.
but my title's coach.
So, I'm sorry. Oh,
My title's coach because I gave it to myself.
Yeah, don't do that. So take a look at this. This is great. If you go out to the Agile Alliance, there's actually some details on all of this stuff. They're really good to look at. But the other thing, if you want to actually develop your coaching skills, great. You're an SPC and you're a coach. Here's some things that you can do. First off, there's a lot of education out there, and there's a lot of actual coach schools out there. I really like to lean on the International Coach Federation, ICF. They've actually got a site that they've created, becomea.coach, and it goes through, okay, how do you learn more? What accredited schools are out there? And there's actually, you can look at agile focused accredited schools, or more general accredited schools. I went with Coactive. My certification is through the Coactive Institute, and I also went through the organizational relationship systems coaching just to get that team level. I went through their whole program, but there's tons of them out there, and you'll find which one resonates with you. And so that's a really great resource. And if it's ICF, it's not just a fly-by-night kind of place. Again, the Agile Alliance coaching ethics, and that's more education on there. Another great way to learn about coaching and develop your skills is get your own coach. I have a coach who I work with on a regular basis, and it can be so helpful. I mentioned connecting with other coaches, and I mentioned practicing coaching. So there's a meetup out there called the Agile Coaching Exchange. It has a West Coast and East Coast group, so for time zones, because it's all virtual. But I know the West Coast more than the East Coast more than the West Coast one. The East Coast one has a lot of coaching dojos. They'll have 2 or 3 a year where you can go in, and they'll actually pair you up with somebody during the session, and you actually practice coaching with them. It's really, really useful. But connect with other coaches, in other meetup groups, and compare notes and see where they learned things. Get that practice. And then there's lots of books out there, podcasts, all kinds of information out there. So that's.
Are you familiar with EMCC, Michelle?
I'm sorry?
Are you familiar with EMCC? There's something in chat.
I am, let's see. EMCC is great for leadership coaching. I'm not familiar with EMCC, but Banky, I will take your word for it. So
I also want to say, I mentioned this guy, Damon Poole. He's the person that helped me go from being awesome in my own mind to pretty good nowadays. And, he used to teach IC Agile, the IC Agile coaching course. I actually had the honor of being able to co-teach that a couple times, and it was a great experience. I know he has some stuff out there. You'll go to that Become a Coach, just Google it. I would, personal opinion, I found that individuals that have received a certification through ICF, it's one that's vetted, as opposed to attend the class and now you're certified kind of thing. But practice coaching is the awesome thing, and there's some tools out there, some games you can play that help you learn those coaching skills, books, podcasts, and stuff. So I think we're approaching our time box. We may have time for one last question, but I mentioned this earlier. Our next in the series is I'm an SPC and I consult. So what is consulting, and how does that work? We will talk a little bit about the flip side of this coin, right? So one end of the spectrum, it's really about meeting you at your terms, at your pace. And the other one is that maybe there's some urgency and you're in here as an SPC where your job is to fix what's broken. And you may be able to use your coaching skills from time to time, but essentially they're hiring you to make it happen. And that's a much different experience and approach and a different set of skills. So like I said, I personally believe you need all five in some way, shape, or form, or at least know who to pull in for all five if you don't have them all yourself. So you go one more slide for me if you don't mind, Rochelle. So here's our contact information and LinkedIn connections. Rochelle and I are both very active in the meetup community. And I had the honor of presenting it at Agile Hartford last night. I'll tell you, one of the best compliments of the year was in chat. Someone said, "I was dreading another safe presentation, but I don't feel that way anymore." So, just understand that as you go out there, you learn more about coaching. You might see some Agile coaches who are like, "I'm not big on safe." Well, there's a reason, because a lot of times safe is implemented without any coaching. And so hopefully this webinar has helped a little bit there. We do have, Rochelle is somebody who's both a consultant and a coach here for us. She also does training. Go one more slide. You can see we have a whole bunch of training classes if you're interested in partnering on your learning journey. Rochelle didn't mention it now, but she's a certified training from the back of the room instructor. So she helps people make their classes a little bit more interesting and engaging, calling upon some of the same skill sets she has. With that said, if there's a last minute question, we can probably fit it in. If you, even if we don't get to it, if you put it in chat, we will put it on, Rochelle and I meet and we'll get you an answer. But otherwise, thank you so much for your time.
Yes, thank you. I'm so glad you're able to join us, or if you're joining us, on the video afterwards. Thanks for watching. Have a great day, everybody.
Phil and Rochelle, thanks so much. And everyone will be sending the recording out within a day.
Excellent.
All right. Take care, everybody.
Wait. We got one.
Oh.
Can you recommend some games for developing our coaching skills? Don't have time to answer that live, but yes. So if I was at my home office, I would have pulled them out of the drawers and shown you, but I'm actually in my little Rent-A-Cube today. And so I don't have them with me, but we will get you, we'll get you some links in our follow-up email.
Awesome. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.